Hey folks, Jack here, and welcome to the very first BookFunnel Blurb review. I'm going to be reviewing some of your blurbs today, giving some feedback on them. A couple weeks ago, we did an entire webinar on writing better blurbs. It's actually something you can find here on the YouTube channel. In that webinar, I did some critiques of some of the blurbs of those who attended the webinar. However, I couldn't get to everybody. So I did put a call out there for those who were interested to submit their blurbs to be reviewed in a separate video. That is what this is. It's taken me a little while to get around to it, so I appreciate everybody's patience. If this is a popular thing, though, I am more than happy to continue to do this. So if you would like your book to have its blurb reviewed, go ahead and put it in the YouTube comments. Just put the name of the book and perhaps the pen name if you're writing under a pen name. I wouldn't drop the link to your book on Amazon in the YouTube comments. YouTube probably wouldn't be a fan of that. But yes, if you do want your blurb to be critiqued in another future video, go ahead and drop it in the comments. And then I'll wait a little while for some folks to leave those there and then add some more. We'll do some more here in the future, critique some more blurbs. So we've got a good variety today to look at. And we're going to be starting here with actually a nonfiction title. So Accounting Fundamentals, a non-finance manager's guide to finance and accounting. So we'll read through the blurb here, and then I will point out a few things that I feel are worth changing or tweaking. And then we'll go through the rest of these and get through them all in this video. So let's get started. The only guide required for non-finance managers and professionals, entrepreneurs, business owners, and students. Are you frustrated by complexities of finance and accounting? Do you find reading financial statements overwhelming and intimidating? As a business owner or manager, you know that finance and accounting are critical aspects of running any successful enterprise. But unfortunately for many people, it is a complicated topic full of jargon that can be confusing and daunting. The lack of financial literacy can lead to costly mistakes, missed opportunities, and unnecessary stress. Imagine, excuse me. Imagine if you had a clear and concise guide that could help you easily master the basics of finance and accounting. Well, there is. This book was written to empower you with strong financial acumen so that you can make better informed decisions in your career and business. Here are some topics you will learn about: the principles of finance and accounting, easy to grasp accounting principles and financial practices to equip you with the knowledge you need to manage financial matters without frustration or confusion. Basic financial terms, 23 financial terms explained in a way that anyone can understand so you can confidently engage in conversations with any finance professional. Financial analysis, learn how to read financial statements like a pro. This will enable you to analyze and gauge the financial performance of any business. Business budgeting and forecasting, gain the tools and strategies needed to navigate the intricacies of business planning, create realistic budgets, and make accurate business forecasts. Don't let your lack of financial knowledge hinder your ability to grow a profitable business or build a successful career. With this book as your trusted resource, you too can build financial confidence in as little as 7 days. It's time to make the decision today to invest in your financial empowerment. Are you ready to embark on a journey toward financial mastery? So, overall, this is a pretty solid blurb for nonfiction. I think some of the things that stand out to me, I want to point those out first. These questions here, I think, are the strongest part of this introduction. In all honesty, I think one or two of these could, in fact, stand in place of this first line. We're making a statement. I feel like asking these questions is going to relate better to your target readers and pull them in. And starting with a question can be a really great way to do that. In particular, in this case, rewriting nonfiction, you're trying to solve a problem. So I might put that ahead of this first sentence, or perhaps even drop this first sentence altogether in place of these questions, because I think that they are a good fit. If you want to keep that kind of symmetry of having three things there, add another question to this. So maybe there's a third question to help clarify it. And go that route if you want to lean into that style. As of now, you're kind of doing a little bit of two different approaches here, and I think that it kind of weakens it. I think you should start with one of these questions because, to me, This is really targeting your audience, and getting them to admit, oh yeah, you know what, I am struggling with this. It sounds like this person has the solution for me, right? There is a lot of text here. That is the one thing I want to say. I don't know how much of this someone is going to necessarily read. When you are talking about nonfiction blurbs, you actually have a few things to your benefit, because you don't necessarily have to have somebody read the whole blurb, right? If you can communicate the information to them in a more concise way, I would try to summarize this or consolidate this into one paragraph, right? Just by taking some of this and paring it down a little bit. I think there's not necessarily an issue with anything that you're saying here, but if you can make it a little bit more concise. And then these bullet points are great, because you're pointing out these are the things you're going to learn. I think there's a one issue is that the bold text here on these two bullet points, it doesn't match these two. I know that's maybe a little nitpicky, but I think this text here after the colon should not be bold, because it would make these stand out a little bit more. However, maybe taking some of this information here, if there's any of it that you can, breaking these down a little bit more. I'd like to see this list of bullet points maybe one or two longer to me, because I think that's what people are going to be drawn to. They're going to see the bold text up here at the top, and I think their eye is naturally going to be drawn down lower on this part of the page, and this is where they're going to start looking. In fact, they might even read this list of bullet points before they ever read the information that's in the middle here, right? This section is telling my eyes that I'm going to have to take time to read all of this. And this is telling me, oh, here's all the information you're going to get. So it's not a problem to do it that way and to kind of sandwich it like that. If this paragraph or these two paragraphs here were made a little bit more concise, and then maybe we expand on these bullet points a little bit, maybe even try to shorten some of the descriptions of each of these just by a little bit to make it a little bit neater and how it appears, their eyes are naturally going to be drawn to that, and you're giving them that information right away there. And then we're wrapping things up here at the end. Nothing necessarily wrong with this section of the blurb here. Obviously, you have a good call to action at the end, right? It's time to make the decision today to invest in your financial empowerment. I do like that. Generally speaking, I think this part of it is fine. It is sometimes hard to get people like excited about nonfiction, right? But I think you've phrased this well. It's time to make the decision. I guess you could say it's time to make the decision today. Is maybe a little redundant. You could say today is the day you decide to invest in your financial empowerment, because you're referencing it's time to and today. That's maybe slightly clunky. So maybe a slight rephrasing there on that statement. But overall, I think this is good. The only other thing here that could be useful is establishing some amount of credibility, whatever that happens to be. So obviously, that is not always easy to do here on a platform like Amazon. But if you have some sort of credentials that you could include here, I think that would be worth including. I think pretty sure Amazon isn't really a fan of you using review text in your blurb, so I would avoid that here on Amazon. But if you have credentials yourself, I would include those. I think that would be really helpful. All right, on to our next one. This is from Stephen Bentley. The title, Mercy, a Detective Matt Deal thriller. It looks like this is a thriller that is in a series. This is book one. And so we have the blurb here. Let's go ahead. Let's just dive right into this. His daughter was taken. He'll make them pay. Married into a powerful Florida family, watches his life shatter after a nightmare unfolds. His 15-year-old daughter, Mercy, is left in a vegetative state following a brutal assault on a Destin beach. She was the only thing holding his fractured marriage together. Now, nothing will ever be the same. At first, Deal trusts the police to bring the attackers to justice. But when it becomes clear the wealthy culprits might walk free, everything unravels. His gym business falters, his marriage collapses, and his ruthless father-in-law sends death threats, blaming him for the family's ruin. With nowhere to turn, Deal is out of options and out of patience. Should he return to post-Brexit Britain to escape the chaos, or embrace the storm and fight back? One thing's certain: someone will pay. For fans of Jack Reacher, Barry Eisler, and vigilante thriller movies like Taken, this pulse-pounding novel explores just how far one father will go when justice fails. All right, so pretty solid start here, I would say. The one thing I do like about the blurb, and this is a true compliment, it's not too long. We're not dragging things out here. We're doing a good job of setting the scene, uh, creating some emotional stakes for the reader. I think it does a really good job of that. Blurbs can oftentimes suffer from being dragged out too long, and really that's more of like a book description if you were going to summarize the plot. I do think that there are some details in here that we might be able to drop, and where we can clean things up just a little bit. Right? There's some information in here that if you can simplify it and only go with what is essential, it's hard for me to tell because I'm not the author of this book. So, but from the outside looking in, obviously we're mentioning the main character, some a bit about his background, right? And where he is now. His daughter, Mercy, this obviously ties into the title of the book, right? Which is great. And all of that. We're dropping Destin Beach. That ties in with it being Florida. All this is pretty good. We're mentioning here his fractured marriage as well. So we've done a good job of setting the stakes. I think this first paragraph is pretty solid in that respect. Now we're kind of meandering a little bit though when we get here. At first he trusts the police. Right, there's a little bit of a gap between this statement and what when we find out what happens to his daughter. So we see his 15-year-old daughter Mercy is left in a vegetative state after a brutal assault, and then there's these two other sentences before this sentence right here, and that actually reduces the emotional impact of that statement. At first, he trusts the police. So if anything, I might have to go back on my statement and say that this ending here, maybe we can cut some of this. First of all, this last sentence, now nothing will ever be the same. I think this is I think you want to, it's a matter of showing and not telling. I think it's enough to say his daughter being in a vegetative state is kind of communicating that. I think you're trying to make sure that point is comes across, and I think it might be unnecessary. This sentence here about she was the only thing holding his fractured marriage together, I think we kind of get hints of that later, though. And so we might be able to just kind of drop these last two lines. And then if we do that and we go from his 15-year-old daughter, Mercy, is left in a vegetative state following a brutal assault on a Destin beach to at first, Deal trusts the police to bring the attackers to justice. Now we're connecting those two things together in a logical order, and the reader isn't like bouncing around from different ideas. Right? We're going from his daughter was attacked in this brutal assault to his marriage is fractured and nothing is going to be the same, and then we go back around. We want to keep the reader there for a little bit longer, I think. And then, but when it becomes clear the wealthy culprits might walk free, everything unravels, his gym business falters. I guess, this is again going to be nitpicky. We maybe don't need to know that his business is a gym in this case. It's something that we can find out in the book. His business falters, makes perfect sense. His marriage collapses. And then this sentence here is maybe something that we could tighten up a little bit too. His ruthless father-in-law sends death threats, blaming him for the family's ruin. I think this is just a little too detailed. If you can summarize this, obviously his marriage is collapsing, but there's a sentence that's going to communicate that his extended family blames him or something like that. You can summarize it without having to drop the details of the father-in-law and the death threats. You can simplify it by removing those things. They'll find out in the book that it was the father-in-law. They'll find out in the book that there were death threats. I don't know that it's necessary here in the blurb. We've gotten the main things across with the assault on his daughter. and all of that. Now his life is falling, right? And then here, if we're looking at the end, with nowhere to turn, Deal is out of options and out of patience. Should he return to the post-Brexit Britain to escape the chaos, or embrace the storm and fight back? Not bad. I think the drop of the post-Brexit Britain, if that's a big theme in the story, obviously you mentioned that he's an expat Brit, right? So we know that. Uh, Again, should he return to post-Brexit Britain? I just wonder if the post-Brexit piece there isn't all necessary, right? Not that there's any issue with that being in the book, but here in the blurb, are we just adding on too much detail? Are we adding on another layer, and that's going to maybe confuse things? So should he return home to Britain to escape the chaos, or embrace the storm and fight back? Right. One thing's certain: someone will pay. And I think this is a pretty good solid ending here. This at the end as well, it does well. We talked before about comparing yourself to other authors, comparing yourself to other books. I think this is done well here for fans of Jack Reacher, Barry Eisler, and vigilante thriller movies like Taken. This pulse-pounding novel explores just how far one father will go when justice fails. So I think that's a good cap on this one. I would leave it as is. It looks good to me.
Thank you for watching. Check out these other videos from BookFunnel, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel.